Okay guys, well welcome back to my channel. So yesterday I did the maiden of the C-130 from Avios. Everything went great. It was really windy. So it was windy yesterday because there was a storm front coming in, and lo and behold, we have a ton of rain today. So that's a good reason that it was windy yesterday. Anyway, today what we're going to go over with the C-130 is all the little knick-knack things about the airplane, all the little intricacies and the quirks, things that are either not very clear in the manual or aren't stated in the manual. Like there's the BEC that has these connections there. You don't really know if you're hooking them up right. Anyway, we're going to get into all that right now. Alright guys, so let's talk about this BEC. So here we have our flight battery, which is plugged into the BEC. The BEC comes as a separate piece in a bag, and it has no instructions on how to hook it up to your airplane. So out of the power lead here, you have two black negative wires and two red positive wires over here, and that gets plugged into the receptacle that comes out right here. So you have to plug in the two black and the two red. It doesn't seem to me that there's any difference in which one you plug into where, because there's two reds and two blacks, so I don't think there's any difference there. And then this servo lead, which comes up to your receiver, which I have mounted on the top of my airplane here, this lead needs to get plugged into an open channel on your receiver. This is going to power your receiver. Now you'll notice in the bundle that comes from the airplane that goes up to your receiver, there is a throttle channel that you need to plug into your throttle channel on your radio. So that plugs into the throttle, but it will not power your receiver. So your power comes from this BEC right here. So that's basically that. Okay guys, I've already done this before, but I'm going to show you how to do the ESC calibration on this model. Go ahead and put your radio into full throttle all the way up, and we're going to connect the flight battery, and we're going to wait for 2 beeps after about 3 seconds. After that 3-second chime, you're going to put the throttle all the way down to 0, and you'll hear all the ESCs chime, and we'll do that right now. And that should complete the procedure. Go down. All right, so we should be all calibrated. All the motors throttle up at the same time, which is great. Okay, something that a lot of people ask about is, can you put a bigger battery inside this airplane? As you can see here, there's almost more than a finger's width of distance right here between the 2200 and the side of the fuselage here, and another finger's distance on the other side as well. So you can easily put a 3000 in here. And I would actually say that this airplane might need a slightly bigger battery or nose weight to get it to fly just a little bit better, a little bit more nose heavy than what I did on my maiden. Okay, this is the cargo bay here, and when you're setting this up, you want to make sure that you set up the endpoints at about 30% so that you don't burn out this back servo or make the back hatch fly open. Because if you have 100% throws and you plug in your receiver for the first time, this hatch is going to fly all the way open. It's going to be gaping open like this. Ask me how I know. So anyway, you want about 30% top and bottom here. So I have this set up on a knob so that it just comes down and the light comes on. It's so beautiful. So make sure you check your endpoint adjustments on that before you plug it into your receiver. Okay guys, so the landing gear is really cool. I could just mess around with the landing gear all day long because I love watching it go in and out. But there is some intricacies towards the landing gear that you need to be aware of. So I have my landing gear set up on a 2-position switch, which is right here. When you have unplugged the model, which is unplugged right now, and you're going to plug it in for the first time, you need to cycle the switch on then off, so it'll teach the sequencer what position it's in. Let me just show you real quick. I'm going to plug in the airplane for the first time, and I'm not going to cycle the switch. I'm just going to flip it to open. So it's going to do this, and it's not really going to know what to do next. And it's just going to close here. So it's all in this kind of middle position where half of it's open and half of it's not. So if you flick it the other half, then it will actually finish doing what it should do. Okay, so what is the cure for that? So let me just show you what to do. So we're going to unplug it again. I'm going to plug it back in. So every time you plug in, you always want to flick the switch. So you got to go up then down. Okay. and it's going to go ahead and close the doors for you. And now it knows exactly where it is in sequence. So now if I want to deploy the landing gear, I flick the switch and everything comes out so beautifully. Okay, so what do you do if you've had the landing gear out? Let's say you've had it parked on your bench for a little while, and that goes down, of course, and you unplug it, and then you're going to plug it back in. What's going to happen if you don't do that flick situation? I'll show you. So here, if you flick, the landing gear is going to want to try and retract without doing its sequence here. So you see that? It's going to start to close. So I don't want this obviously to strip, so I'm going to undo that. So let's just show you what to do when you first plug it in. So once again, you're going to do your flick situation. You're going to flick it down and then up, and then it knows where it's at. Kind of completes the sequence there. Now I want to retract the landing gear. And it's going to do its sequence. I love how it just does it all on its own. It's so cool. So that's how you go about understanding how to do the landing gear. Okay guys, let's talk about the tail screws when you're putting this model together. So there's two tail screws that hold everything together. This one right here, and there's a hole right here which you need to pass the screw through. I dropped the bolt into here, or the screw into here, and it just fell inside the fuselage. So if you take a quick peek here, let me see if I can't get this in shot. It's so hard here. Okay, you can just barely see the tip of the screwdriver. That down inside there is where the screw actually needs to go. So what I did is I took some tweezers, I put the screw down in here and dropped it into place, and I screwed it in from there, as you can see right there. So that's something to be aware of. Make sure you pass that screw down into here and not up here. Just a quick note, this is the rudder horn here, and it has two grub screws on it that clamp onto the rudder post that comes down here, and it has two flat sides. Make sure that you put thread locker on both sides of the grub screw so that it holds it in place and it won't ever come off when you're flying, because you definitely need that rudder when you're flying. Okay guys, so this is the outer flap. This is your main flap here, and this is your inner flap. So in the instruction manual, it actually shows you putting the Z-bend in the most outer hole here, which is actually the one that is most enlarged for this here. So in the written part of the manual, it does tell you to put the Z-bend in the second hole up from the screw head. So originally I had it out here, and I had way too much deflection of this flap, and also it didn't have a lot of resolution. So when it would push the flap back to neutral, it sometimes would go and sometimes it wouldn't. So in order to get the Z-bend through the hole here, what I do is I heat up the end of this Z-bend with a flame, and then I push the Z-bend rod through the hole to enlarge it to the perfect size. So I push it through and I pull it back out, wait for it to cool, then I go ahead and put it all the way through. So that way that hole is perfectly matched for the Z-bend, and you don't have any slop in your control surfaces. So let's go ahead and talk about how much deflection you need in your flaps, your ailerons, and also your elevator. Okay guys, in the instruction manual, it tells you to have 13 millimeters of deflection for the flap down here. So that, what I do is I have that as my maximum right now. Now here's the thing, is that if you measure it from here, it's going to be about 13 or 15, and over here it's going to be 18 or 20 or so. So make sure you determine where you want your 13 millimeters to be measured by. It states in the manual that if you go anything more than 13 millimeters, that you might have trouble with the landings because it's going to slow down the airplane too much, and it could possibly tip stall, which is what they inferred. It's not what they said, but it's very curious that they don't say measure it from the end of the flap or the inside of the flap. So you're going to have to make some sort of determination there where your flap is going to go to, and make sure that you don't have too much deflection, or put it on a knob like I have mine on a slider switch. Okay, so guys, let's talk about the aileron deflection here, and this is what I have right now. I have about 50% aileron deflection in my ailerons right now. So I started off the flight with 100%, which is that right there. So that was a lot of throw, and probably too much throw. So I haven't measured how much throw the 50% is here, but it's going to be about like that. Let me get a caliper, hang on. In actuality, when I flew, I should probably go down to about 40% of throw, because it actually has quite a bit of aileron authority. So that is measuring it out at exactly 10 millimeters from the outside edge to the outside edge here. And the inside here, it's about the same. It's actually just a little bit less. but that's measuring to the flap, which can be variable. So that's at about 9 millimeters over here. Okay guys, so this is the rear elevator here, and the plane is upside down, just FYI. So this is the amount of throw I had at the end of my flight, which is 50% throw. This is 100%, which is what I started the flight with, which was way, way too much. So let me measure what the elevator throw is at 50% there. Okay, so at full deflection at 50%, it is at 15 millimeters of deflection from the outer surface here to the outer surface here. So I think I could have gone even to about 40% and been just fine. So at about 40% there, let's see what this is measuring out to, because it was quite reactive. That's about 12.5 millimeters right there. So 12.5 might be good. So consider using more expo. I was using 30%, so you can either use less throw or more expo. Anyway, something to smooth out that pitchiness of the airplane will really help you out. Okay guys, another thing to note is in the manual it tells you to set up your ailerons as 2 ailerons, and also your flaps as 2 flaps, and your inside flaps as 2 flaps as well. You do not want to do that. What will happen is if you set up your radio as 2 ailerons, it'll assume that you want a separate channel for each aileron. So you all the surfaces here, the ailerons, the flaps, and the other flaps here are all on Y connections. So this has a Y connection to the other flap. Same thing here to the other flap. It has a Y connection and the aileron. So you need to set them up as 1 aileron, and basically, and that's something that you need to set up as 1 aileron that is wide together. Same thing with this flap that's flapped and wide together, and same thing here. So it's just a little bit wrong in the instruction manual. So there's really no way to get around it because everything is Y connected deep inside the airplane. You really can't get to it. If you wanted to do that, you would have to do some serious surgery. Look inside the fuselage of the airplane. The airplane's upside down right now, but you can see all the sequencers in there for all that gear bundle that's inside there. So everything comes through on this big cable right here. This comes down for your receiver here, and this little bit here is the portion I was talking about earlier. The cool thing about this model is this is the first time I've ever put together a model, plugged everything in, and I didn't have to reverse anything. So my ailerons, my flaps, my second flaps, the rudder, and the elevator were all going the correct direction, which has never happened in the history of my putting together airplanes. Okay guys, that's about it. I just maybe 2 more pearls of wisdom before we get going here. The paint on this thing is amazing, as a lot of the airplanes from Hobby King. What I do with this type of paint on such a scale aircraft, like I did with my Das Ugly stick, I coated the whole thing over with Minwax polyacrylic, which is a water-based sealer, and it really brings out the color of this airplane. It'll make it shine really nicely, and it'll give it a lot of protection from handling. Just going in and out of this hatch here, I would be very worried. My hands going in there and trying to get the battery hooked in, you're going to get a lot of wear around these edges, so it's going to give you a lot of protection there. Also protection from dirt. Even the white here, the minimal times that I've handled it, it's starting to show a little bit of wear where there's just a little bit of dark spots where I've been handling it. Very minor, but once you put that polyacrylic on there, it gives it a waterproof coat that if you need to wipe it down afterwards, it's going to wipe down really, really nice. Because this paint is fairly coarse and microscopically, you're gonna get a lot of dirt and debris inside of it, so you might as well protect it with a can of the polyacrylic. It's very, very cheap. I will leave a link in the description and also up here, so you guys can see the video I did on that years ago. The only other thing here is on the props. Make sure you put a tiny little dab of thread locker on the prop bolts here to make sure that they stay on during flight. You don't want those flying off. And anyway, guys, that's it. If I've missed anything, guys, let's have a discussion. Put the comments in the description down below in the comment section. If you guys have any reservations about this airplane, I can tell you it is one of the most gorgeous, beautiful, nice flying airplanes that are out there now. I only got to fly it that one time, as you guys will see. You can see a card right up here. But I was in crazy winds. Like I said, it's raining out, and the winds were going in 2 different directions at the same time in that canyon I was flying it in. It was pretty crazy, but hey, we got it down on the ground. safely. And this airplane is the last time I'm going to see it. It's going to head off to Texas now. You know who you are if you're going to be getting this. Anyway, thanks everyone, of course, for checking out my channel. If you like this video and you like this type of content, please help support my channel. I'll leave some links in the description down below, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Bye.